Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for coming. Sorry, we're a little bit late getting underway. So this morning for the Dharma talk, I want to talk about something I've talked about a lot over the last 10, 12 years, and something we've been studying as a group here for many, many years. And not only that, but chanting it in English and Sanskrit with the help of Chisho, a student of mine, and also Yin Long, another student of mine, and the help of organizing this so we can actually practice it once or twice a week. How many times a week do we do this?
We used to do it every day, but now we do it 3 times a week.
Okay, 3 times a week. Amazing piece of work and a lot of hours put into this by Yin Long and Chisho, not to mention Chodo and Chiesa. So a lot of work happened there, and other people might have been involved that I'm not aware. Of course, a lot of people are involved in chanting it. I'm very, very interested in these. These 30 verses are very powerful, and it's a way in the 4th century. Vasubandhu actually looked at the teaching of the Buddha, as far as I know, I wasn't there, and brought this understanding in these 30 verses, which were in Sanskrit, and even when it gets translated, and I think talked to Yin Long a while back about let's get some more translations of that. What do we come up with? Yin Long 13 of them all together. Where's he at? He's here somewhere.
Ishwang, we had 11.
At 11. Okay, well, it's still a lot. And if you study it, if you read, just pick out any of the verses. I'm going to pick out a couple here because there's 30 of them. I don't want to do that, but there's a couple of them that I think are very, very important, have been extremely important to me. And I've been looking at this a long time. Basically the Stephen Anaker translation. So, pardon me, I'm a little bit winded. When you get into your 80s, you'll know what I'm talking about, more than likely. But maybe you won't have to do that. So first, I'm going to read. What do I have, the Anaker translation here? Okay. So I'm going to go to skip ahead of the rest of them. I highly recommend that you find this book by Anaker or anything else you can find on this. Read this, study this. You want to know who you are, what this mind is. The Buddha pointed at it a couple thousand years ago, and Vasubandhu took that in Sanskrit and put that into a language that if you go in and look at that, or someone goes in who understands or speaks Sanskrit and translates that into another language, even though it goes different directions and takes different shapes and fragrances and chemical whatever, it still carries the same meaning. And some of those translations you may resonate with, where the person sitting next to you really prefers this other way because of their construct in their mind, their way they work with concepts. You cannot see the difference in those, but there are differences, and those differences are unsearchable with concepts. Unsearchable with concepts. But they're immediate with consciousness. Have at it. You have the rest of your life, don't you? Try to work with consciousness. This is what we've been doing for the last 2 weeks. This is 2 weeks into Ango. We've been sitting down, hopefully, and watching what moves in the mind stream so that you can train your consciousness to stand in front of the thinking process, not wipe it out, take it over, but just consciousness can't support the self, an ego, but thinking process sometimes can supports that part of the consciousness that but adds to the confusion. It's not past. So number 26 is, and I'll read this slowly, you might be surprised how slowly. As long. What's being indicated by it? As long, what's being indicated, it's pointed at one of the primary illusions, that of time. As long. As long as consciousness. What is consciousness? Find out. Don't get it from Webster's. Get it from you sit down and you see that there's something happening there. When we use the term of the word consciousness, we use the word awareness. You don't need anyone to describe that to you. Those are so very basic and simple concepts that you need to see them yourself. As long as consciousness is not situated. Now we're talking about another illusion, which is location. But we need to work with that. We need to work with the concepts so we can understand what this is deeply. Go beyond the grasping of the thinking mind to results, to get something, don't get something, understand something. You don't need to understand this. You need to be aware of it. Pardon my scolding tone of voice here. Like I said, someday you'll be 80 or more. As long as consciousness is not situated, this is a negativa, not situated. So as long as consciousness is not situated within perception only, the residues, not situated within perception only, the residues of a dual apprehension, this and that, right and wrong, up and down, back and forth, life and death, all of them, every single polarity there is. The residues of a dual apprehension will not come to an end. In other words, warfare. In other words, fighting. In other words, arguing with yourself. In other words, having really negative thoughts you try to push away, or having really positive thoughts you want to fluff up and have more of them. More of manipulate. You could spend the rest of your life missing your life by trying to manipulate what's being served up to you every single second by dependent origination. Pratitya Samutpada is showing you what you need to do. You don't need to make any choices. Make choices and go ahead. Be yourself. Be a person. Be successful. Head for Wall Street if you're really smart. Plenty of people out there that help you make money. Not that you shouldn't do that. Maybe you should. But if you're listening to me, if you're in this group right here, you might have another interest in what your life is about. Did I promise anybody that I wouldn't shout or scold anybody today? No? Okay, good. As long as consciousness, that which is receiving, consciousness produces nothing the way it's being used here. Is not situated within perception only, the residues of a dual apprehension will not come to an end. Do I have another translation here? I don't think I do.
And the Sanskrit or
Huh?
the Sanskrit, no, over here, the next page.
Next one here.
This is all the different versions of 26 on. So here's the Sanskrit and here's 26.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for helping me. So here's another one, translation of the same one as Ondo's helping me with here. I don't like any of these. Here, I like this one. As long as consciousness does not abide in the realization that subject-object designations are mere representations of consciousness, the attachment to the twofold grasping will not cease to operate. As long as that as long as we see that we think there's something there or something there, and we see it, no, it's just consciousness. Just consciousness. I don't know if that can be understood deeply without a great deal of sitting meditation practice. This is a very simple one. I don't know who translated this, but the initial here is R. So long as consciousness does not remain in the state of representation only, the residues of the twofold grasping will not cease to function. In other words, passion, aggression, ignorance, hope, and fear, war and peace, all the duality, life and death. It's not just this little event down the hallway across your kitchen table. It's the whole dynamic of dependent origination. There is no singular being there. That's the illusion that we are fooled by. And we suddenly think we have to start hacking iron because somebody's threatening us. Are they? Relatively, yes. The whole world is fighting. We're our physical forms and our minds are at the mercy of the insanity of the world that is trying to manipulate, control, subjugate, own everything. You have the opportunity to liberate yourself so that no one can find you anywhere. Why? There isn't one. That doesn't mean they can't lock you up, but they can't lock up who you are. Can't do that. So I'd like to do something a little bit different today, but I'm going to read this one more time, just in case you forgot what I said. I can't even remember it. That's why I keep reading it, because I can't remember. Because I cannot remember. Here's a longer one. As long as there has not yet arisen a consciousness seeking to abide in psychophysical closurehood, some people are going to just love this. Not some- How about you, Patrick? Does that make sense to you?
It's complicated.
Yeah, it is. Well said. Closurehood, there remains proclivities. There remains proclivities, and I feel that Chisho can help me with this. The Sanskrit for that is anusayas, from the two attachments to Atman and Dharmas, or self and things, which means one has not yet been able to be. So one has. Is that your fault? One has not yet been able to suppress or destroy them. I'll just read it really fast, and then the grammar works. So I could go on and read some more of this, but I think what I would like to do is well, take some questions possibly, but maybe first give you a sample of what have several monks here have been chanting this for a long time. And you can, if you would chant what we set up to do, just let me go back. It covers some part of it that I think I missed based on my original intention. Yes, here it is. So as long as consciousness is not situated within perception only, the residues of a dual apprehension will not come to an end. Now, 27 does something else. It comes in and kind of, just because that tends to suggest that you could just know this intellectually. You got it. But it comes in and puts a little bit of a damper on that by saying, and so even with the consciousness, all this is perception only, because this also involves an apprehension for whatever makes something stop in front of it isn't situated in this only. Follow that? So it's basically saying, I'm doing my own translation here. You can't think about this. You can't reason logically come to some kind of a conclusion. You can, as long as you don't hang your hat on it. You can do anything. It's the grasping that makes the difficulty. So we're not trying to stop people from thinking. Just notice that it's the space in which the thoughts occur that is wisdom. That which occurs is just pieces and particles, leaves, flowers, grasses, objects. And so even, see if I can find another one. Is there a translation of 27 here too?
It would be the fourth page in your packet.
Well, you're right on top of stuff.
No, Yin Long is right on top of stuff.
There he goes again. On top of things. Okay, the fourth one. That's verse 28. Verse 27, there it is, thank you. So I'm just going to pick one out here. R. Even in recognizing it is representation only of whatever you make stop before you, you fail to remain in that only. That's pretty clear right there. You might have to study that a little while. You might have to sit and face the wall for a few years, maybe many, many years. So what I would like to do next is, you have this organized so you know how to approach it. So how many monks here are able to chant this? Okay, and several people have copies, so you're free to go along and learn how to do that and listen to, this is a shloka form, I think, that Chisho decided to use. Isn't that right, Chisho? Yes, okay. I have a thumbs up. This is a Western gasho. So how would you have a bell or you have somebody start?
I do not. I can get one.
You like this one?
Sure.
Catch. You want to catch back. Nice cushion.
And Sokuzan,
Sure.
you had asked us to do 26, but our translation committee that's the verse that we stopped at.
That's
So
fine.
would you like me to just do the Sanskrit that we have here?
Do the Sanskrit and you don't have the Sanskrit in 27?
I do.
Okay, so do 26 and 27, and maybe do them, maybe go through this once, at least once, and then maybe go through it twice, so everyone can get a good feeling what it feels like to chant that, and then maybe we'll come back and we'll maybe have some questions, possibly Yinlong or Chisho could also respond to, besides just me, because they worked on it so much, and not to mention yours truly. Go ahead.
Ata Trimshika Vinyapti Karikaha. Yavad Vinyapti Matra De Vinyanam Na Avatishtate Graha Vayas Yanushayas Havana Vinivartate Vinyapti Matram Nevedam Iti Ahi Hya Upalambataha Sthapayana Grataha Kinchite Tanmatrena Avatishtate Yavad Vinyapti Madrade Vinyanam Na Avatishtate Graha Dvayasya Nishayas Havana Vinivartate Vinyapti Matram Nevedam Iti Ahi Hya Upalambataha Sthapayana Grataha Kinchite Tanmatrena Avatishtate Ata
Thank you.
Trimshika Vinapti Karikaha Samaptaha.
Thank you. So, either Chisho or Yinlong or both of you, have any commentary on that, on what was done, or anything you wanted to say about the idea behind all that? We've been doing that for how many years now? 3, and we still haven't gotten all of the English translations. Do we have any English that we could do, or is that
We
spontaneously?
have 1 through 25.
We have 1, 2, 3. We just missed it. Okay, well, maybe pick out a couple or something. Sure.
I'm going to do the beginning down to 6 per Ondo.
Okay, go ahead.
Vijnana transforms ideas of self and other proliferate. The transformations of vijnana develop in 3 different ways: maturation, mentation, and the cognition of objects. Maturation called alaya, the storehouse of all karmic seeds. What, where, and how it holds unknown, it always involves contact, mental attention and feelings, cognition and volition. Neither pleasant nor unpleasant, it is inert and radical. The same for contact and the rest, it flows on like a surging stream, and reverses in our hot state. The transformation called manas depends on, clings to alaya. Its nature is reflection, always conjoined with four inert and obstructed afflictions. View of self, ignorance of self, pride of self, and love of self.
So I was going to go and go ahead and read another translation of verse 26. But before I do that, I'd like to open to any shows or anything you'd like to say or comment on.
Ishwang, a couple of things. What you mentioned, what the word you picked out about anushaya in
Yes.
the things is actually best translated as residual tendencies, vasanas.
Vasanas.
Yeah,
Okay.
something like that. And the other interesting thing is in this second line of this verse, when he says, so long as it is not situated in, it will continue to have the dual apprehension. Let me read it.
Yes.
The close attachment to dual apprehension will not come to an end. Actually, in Sanskrit, it actually emphasizes that. It says it will stay and not stop. So just to make it sure that it is clear, that it not only says once, it says it twice in two different ways, meaning it will stay and it will not stop.
Did you say that in Sanskrit so we can hear that language?
Yeah, anushaya stavana vinivartate. So it will stay and it will not leave.
Yes.
Stavana is stay and vinivartate is
Will not leave.
go apart. So it emphasizes, the Sanskrit emphasizes not just one, but it says very clearly it will stay and it will not go away. So the emphasis is on that.
Thank you. You know, you have any comments on what we're looking at here at all? Okay, so I want to read this one more time and then I'll maybe take some questions. So I'm going to read this. As long as consciousness does not rest in projection only, it's another way of saying it, using another word, the tendencies of grasping self and other will not cease. So, and then she shows, of course, saying in the Sanskrit, it's even emphasized again. So, questions about that if you have them, and I'll do my best. Yes.
Shoto bowing. In 26, there's a very apparent paradox to me.
Where is it?
The very first and the very last thing, as long as,
Okay.
and then it can't come to an end.
Yes.
So time exists forever as long as we believe in it.
Look closely what's being said here. It's not emphasizing time. It's using the language that we are trapped by in order to liberate us from that. More, let's don't stop if you have more.
Shoto bowing. What helps cut through the illusion of time and space?
Well, the concept of saying that it's unreal, it's a delusion. We start with that. This whole thing that here is an illusion we are deluded by. So we start with that. But to actually see that doesn't mean that the illusion's going away. It could get more, it probably will get more intense. The sound and the fury is coming and it seems real. And if you do anything with it, you validate its reality. And if you've been downloaded into a human form, you need to deal with the dragons. You need to deal with this as it approaches you, not stop it, not join it, and certainly not ignore it. Don't miss your life. It's being served up to you. You may have, not just you, but any of us, we may have been missing our life forever. For 20, 30, 40 years, maybe our whole life will spend just turning away from that which is showing up in front of you. Go ahead.
Shotobai, how do we situate within perception only?
Observe. Be the perception. Be the perceiver. Until you see there isn't anyone perceiving, there's just consciousness only. That's when the object being perceived and that the illusion that there's someone perceiving that just because there's a bunch of blood and guts over here and eyeballs. This is not true. This is unreal. And if you believe it, eighth of an inch of belief into that, it's got you for eons because time is unreal. You have to see it. If you see it, it will not feel like success story. It feels more like failure. That's why the spiritual path is so difficult, because it's so easy to just suddenly, I've had it. Enough of this wandering around in the manure. Samsara. That's why the Buddha said 2,500 years ago, life is suffering. He didn't qualify that at all. Where did he go from there? Why is that happening? Why is there suffering? We want something. Craving. We want something to go away. We want something. We want more of something. We want something. We want to not be bothered by something. You distract ourselves. We want something. We want something. And that part of consciousness that shows up as a desire is masquerading as a separate being, using the body-mind complex with fingers, bones, blood, and a heartbeat to assume some kind of credibility here as somebody. That's why we have dictators. That's why I have prisons full of people who don't mind. No respect for people's confusion. We just torture them, so lock them up, control them. More?
Dawa, I think you said perception only is path.
Yes.
So to be situated within perception only, does that mean we are occasionally in perception only?
Yes. As long as we're in this illusion, then it's going to come and go, depending on the karma that you brought into this world. Your perception of yourself as a person or as others as people, and as a fully ordained monk, your whole life is dedicated to seeing what the truth of the Buddha's teaching is or was, and also including Vasubandhu, the 30 verses. It's path until you realize it. And you realize it, it will not be an event. If it's an event, it's just more relative truth, more illusion.
You divine the word situated makes me want to go to maintain within perception only, but you said not to maintain. So
Yeah, we probably could have an argument about it. Look at it's amazing. There's what 11 to however many translations, and they're all coming at this from a little bit different angle, and some seem to be really close to. If you look into the Sanskrit, which of course Chisho has, because that's a language he's very familiar with, and Yinlong also has looked in there and has looked at the differentiation going on in all those words and so on. So I've not done that. More?
you divine. So some of the other words for situation were situated are abiding, arresting, dwell. Yeah, those are those things that we do occasionally on the cushion. And
Now what?
how do we stay there without maintaining?
It's always about awareness. It's never about maintaining anything. As soon as you start maintaining anything, then that part of the consciousness that we commonly refer to as ego comes right in and makes a big meal out of that. The success of maintaining, food for ego. The failure of maintaining, food for ego. Ability to just ignore it that you weren't able to maintain, or any other dynamic that has to do with distraction or that kind of disturbance that is like a cover-up. It just creates the ongoing situation of a self. And if there's not been an understanding of the body-mind complex through a sitting practice of meditation, I'm not talking about just following your thoughts and labeling thinking and that kind of thing. I'm saying fundamentally being here 100%, holding still, and no matter what arises, that is your meditation. That's the way I teach it. It's not like I'm right and all the Tibetan lamas are wrong, or Thich Nhat Hanh is wrong, or the Theravadins are wrong. It's not about right and wrong. It's about what you might need to do to see the truth yourself. That's what I'm endeavoring to encourage you to do.
Jim Bowing, why did you feel the need to do a new translation?
I'm not sure what, there's all kinds of translations.
Well, like there's a new Chisho in Yinlong.
Just to get used to, there's no need, there's plenty of translations, but just playing with the language, having someone like Chisho who speaks Sanskrit, is born in India. So it's someone who knows this language and is also a student of Buddhism. Yinlong's different dynamics, but a similar, really strong interest in this. I think it's a matter of trying to use the concepts to help us move closer towards an understanding of what the concepts. It's like studying a lot of different recipes for, I don't know, cheesecake. It's, there are lots of different ones. I don't mean to make light of your question. I'm just saying that's where I'm at with it, but I might have misunderstood what your inquiry is about.
Shanjian Bowing, I guess it's like, was there something missing from the other translations that was?
That's good. Yes.
I could answer his question. I think they were trying to get the words that would go with the chant, the song.
That's a
of the
very
chant.
very practical situation.
I think so, but Chisho would know that answer.
Chisho? Chisho is signaling. Go ahead.
Going exactly what you'd have said, because the chant needs exact number of syllables in every line. It needs 8 plus 8, 16, and so 32 syllables it needs in order to be in that meter. And Sanskrit flows very easily, whereas if you notice various translations, they just don't fit into that exact syllable count. So a big part of what Yinlong has done is to not only choose the right words which convey the meaning or don't distort the meaning, at the same time meet the very strict syllable count of, like I said, 8 plus 8, 8 plus 8. It has to be 32, give or take 1 or 2. But so that's been the biggest drive for making sure the chanting has been one of the biggest drives, I think. Wow.
Is that close to what you were, or is there some other area?
Jim Bowing.
Okay.
Yeah, that was helpful. I'm just wondering from your perspective if there was did you add things to kind of?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm very interested in emphasizing in whatever way I can that you need to be aware of this situation, of the structures that grasp, reject, and shut down passion, aggression, ignorance, and don't fiddle with them. Don't turn the politics of awareness into the politics of manipulation. Just be aware of it. And it's very painful because sometimes that part of what we're being aware of, we start to become more and more aware of how insanely self-centered we are. Not just you or me or someone else, but it's a dynamic that is so incredibly individual and has so many little tiny micro stories around it that support a particular thing that shows up a certain way. And it is about being aware of that, not pushing it, not getting rid of warfare. I often say, don't go to war with warfare. Be aware of it, because if warfare is there, it's dependently arisen. And just because you have this wonderful Buddha nature, that now you realize that you're not a separate self and there are no separate others. This is all going to the number 27 there. You know, there's no way you can know this. This is not relative knowledge. It's better than that. It's worse than that. It's worse because ego gets no cream puffs from this. It will starve to death trying to chew on this kind of information or this kind of understanding.
Hogan bowing.
Again,
In the beginning, the early teachings have four noble truths. And this is a later evolution of the Buddha's teaching or of Vasubandhu's teaching. Sometimes these words like duality and perception only, they feel complicated compared to the early teachings. How does how do these lines fit into the early teachings of truth of suffering?
yes. So the same thing. If you understand the first noble truth, you're done. But you have to understand it completely. It's set up as a progression because they're provisional teachings. They have their provisos in there so that you do this and you do this. This happens and that happens. There's grasping and control creates the suffering. So it goes. The shape of it changes all the time. So some people, as far as the whole overview of the whole thing, it's just there's centuries of just training the mind to stabilize. As you know, you studied that. Just sit down. You can do this if you practice meditation more than a few years. You realize you can actually stabilize yourself. Whether you want to do that or not, maybe not. So that's why it's necessary to have a teacher. And the teacher needs to be on your wavelength. It needs to be able to, and that needs to be a teacher who no longer has a wavelength. If they have one, then you might get a lot of help from that person, but might just be more in the mundane area. More in the mundane area. You were coughing when I was speaking, so I thought maybe possible you missed the third consonant there. More? That's a good question because, but I think it would take some kind of an analysis of the whole thing. And I think there's a history of Buddhism by Andrew Skilton that I would recommend that I've been through a few times and still don't remember what the hell was said. It's a pretty good book. Might get you into that area a little bit so you can see the different ways that the study of Buddhism has taken off on, had footprints across the snow and footprints through the jungle and all the different cultures and come up with different ways that this Buddha's Dharma. That's why there were the 18 schools. When the Buddha passed, suddenly 18 people there all saw this differently. Isn't that how it showed up in the way you studied it? Yes.
Hogan bowing. If suffering were to be part of this line, how would it show up? Where would suffering show up in this teaching?
It's unreal. Doesn't mean you don't have nerve endings.
Hogan bowing. Where does the non-conceptual understanding of unreal show up on the cushion?
There is no difference between the concept of unreality and unreality. It just looks like it. That's why we're so deluded by this. We keep looking for something else. The nature of duality is something else. There is no something else. You are looking at your Buddha nature right now, whether you're looking at me or that cottage cheese wall over there. That is the Buddha. Everything is awake everywhere, all the time. Nothing changes. There is no tick-tock anywhere. Well, maybe a little bit. Am I getting close to what it needs to be? And I'm speaking with you. I'm speaking to everyone here, but I'm specifically speaking to you. You need to see it right now. To think there's another moment around the corner or things will be better over here or over there. That's a possibility. But the important thing is to see it right now. Just like you communicated to me a little while ago, what you're having difficulty with. What did I tell you to do?
Sit down,
I didn't tell you to sit down.
just hang
You said
out.
you couldn't sit, yeah. You said you couldn't sit down. So I just hang out there. No, there's nothing to obey. If you think there is, If you think you're going to go torture yourself, even though the person who is telling you, I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm not telling you to obey. You can do whatever you want. But if you come to me and ask questions, I'm probably going to give you responses based on the mirror I'm looking into. Yes,
You're giving me responses with concepts, and when the concepts are innately agitating, are they still helping?
well, I don't know, are they? But why do you keep coming back and asking me stuff or telling me stuff? Is there some fundamental help there or not? Because people do go the other way, as we know. That doesn't make them wrong, doesn't make me right, doesn't. We're in a relative realm that is completely contaminated with passion, aggression, ignorance, hope, and fear, and blame, intense blame of how you're feeling. You want to blame someone for how you're feeling, and you'll find proof. Or not, maybe you won't. More?
Hogan bowing, are you teaching beyond words and forms in a way that the mind that is inundated with concepts can work with?
You should continue, yes. But it takes a long time, as I've said, for a long time. Takes a long time. You can't be a weekend warrior here. It's got to be, I don't even like to use the word warrior. You can't just do this in a few years. More than likely, I'm not saying it's not possible at all, but more than likely, you need to sit down and spend a lot of time by yourself alone in a room or in front of a tree or in a cabin in the woods or in the back of an old pickup truck. I don't know. You need to be someplace where you're totally by yourself and you can watch those things arising in the mind stream, emotions, memories, thoughts, and not do anything with them. Don't accept them. Don't do that. Don't push them away. Don't do that. And don't ignore them. It's that simple, and it is that incredibly difficult to do because we have been here for centuries. That's an understatement. And here we are again in human form, endeavoring to see the truth. And if we're lucky, we've stumbled into somebody that helped us, turned our heads slightly and say, you might want to look right there. That's all that happened for me in two situations with my teachers. That's all I got from them, basically. Look here. That's what I'm basically saying to you. More?
Total bowing. You teach and the teachings talk about not knowing. What is the importance of the conceptual clarification that we do in the Dharma talks?
It's important to do that. Use concepts. Bury your head right in it. It's very important to use concepts. We're not trying to get rid of concepts and not think about anything and be people who don't think. We're just all intuition. No, everything needs to be included. Include. That's a good word besides receive. Another one, and observe. Include. If this shows up, you need to include it. I don't care how big its teeth are. That doesn't mean you need to let it eat you. But that could be part of it. That's very situational. You'd say this tooth is coming down here and this one, I think it'll just miss me. Being a little silly, but I'm saying every dynamic is so incredibly different. Every dance that's happening has a different orchestra. Go ahead.
Shoto bowing. You're talking about the teeth coming after us. Is it the same thing when there's a big smiling goddess coming towards us?
Could be, especially in your case. Yeah, it could be. The differentiation that happens there is it's not worth bothering with. What is worth bothering with is be aware. If something is arising in front of you and you're aware, you will not know what it is. You might be starting to calculate about it, or is this a threat, or is this going to be helpful? It might have a form to it that you don't recognize coming out of the darkness. But so far as you can, receive. If it shows up, meant to be there. Like I was telling myself at 4 o'clock in the morning when I woke up and couldn't get back to sleep. Now you're supposed to be awake. You're not supposed to sleep. So the lecture didn't work too well. Go ahead.
Shoto bowing. With that area that I felt Hogan was talking about with the different teachings, is that the same area that your third tenant is talking about?
How are you seeing that?
Show bowing, that the teachings are doing their best to be sincere and meet people where they're at, and that might look really different.
That's the differentiation and elaboration around that is just to try to say, here's lots of ways this can show up. There's no correct path. It's like saying, well, the Theravadins are this way, or the Rinzai Zen people got it all right. No, I don't do any of that. No, it's just not important to establish right and wrong and so on. There's enough of that going around under the guise of being helpful when actually it's about controlling people.
Show bowing, what's at the root of sectarian bitterness? Bowing.
What does it look to you? Do you think sectarian bitterness?
Show bowing. I just know that my personal dynamic seems to be a lot about right and wrong, and other people are doing something wrong and we're doing something right. Trying to understand that more clearly.
I think it's just that it's looking for it is looking for a hitching post or a reference point. So we're the order of immediate light, or we're the Sokuzan, or we're doing sitting meditation, where these other people are doing some other kind of meditation that has to do with forms or what do they call those, mantras? Yeah. Yes.
Show bowing. Are you able to meet a student in a practice that
Of course I
you
am.
that
No, I
you've
don't
never
know.
even done?
My what? I'm trying to find out. Am I able to what? Do what? What am I able, what's your question? Am I able to? What?
Show bowing.
You can do it.
How does the student show you what they need?
Sometimes they don't, sometimes they run away. It's a matter of presenting what is going on with you to the teacher, no matter what. It's very, very difficult for me with my teachers. I'm just grateful I had those teachers. For me, it was so much fear of being rejected or not being accepted that it just took me forever. Yes, sir.
Shadow bowing. It feels like I can go through the rituals.
Don't you want me to accept you?
Yes, I do.
Do you think I'm going to do that?
No.
Who gives you that idea?
I'm hard on myself, and it's the hardest way I could understand that situation.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't remember what I was saying.
I know.
Jacob Bowing.
Yes, sir.
I feel like I feel like maybe some forms of Hinduism kind of feels like the opposite of Buddhism, but it still uses dharmic words.
Some forms of Hinduism, I'm just speaking up a little bit for you. Seems they use
Some-
dharmic words, or you mean like Sanskrit and so on?
Yes, and it seems like it's kind of the opposite, or it's the way of seeing things from Buddhism.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, and I've studied a little bit of that. So what's your question?
Do you think that well, I've seen a teacher before in that sort of realm of Dharma teachings, and it seemed like that teacher was very much so saying everything has to be done a certain way. Everyone has to pray to this particular form.
I follow you there. What is your question? Give me the question and I can respond to that, possibly.
So, and I saw that teacher, and it seems that they were accepting of the students, even if they didn't really follow what he was saying.
In other words, that teacher was a pushover then.
I'm not sure. I was wondering, is that sort of from my perspective, that seems confusing to me, where it's like
Okay.
the teacher was, and almost felt like, well, I'm not sure. Well, is there some value to, or is there is it better, or is it it
Speak
seems.
up, come on, let me have it. I'm anxious to answer. I follow what you're saying. I can see where that would be confusing. I would say, don't worry about it. The most important message I can give to you, Jacob, is just train your mind. Sit still, hold still, whether you're a student of mine or a student of um, Ramana Maharshi or anyone, if you're a student, doesn't matter. Doesn't really, it does matter on some level, but the way you're asking the question, what is the most important thing for you to do just what you're doing right here? You've just spent 2 weeks in Ongo, and I've sat here a little bit of the time. I notice you sit right there all day long, every day. That's the most important thing you can do. You don't need to understand what you're asking about based on the way you're asking it. Now, you may need to understand it based on your consciousness, on what's happening in consciousness, but you don't need to leave what you've just been working on by sitting here and watching your mind come and go and jump into some kind of concept about Hinduism or Buddhism or any of that.
Well, I was also, one thing, I guess, I just think of sometimes that I thought would be, well, I kind of don't want to bring this up because I already kind of feel like I know
Oh,
the answer.
that's, I start to get really worried because I think if you guys all say to me, I was going to ask you this, but I think I already know the answer. I might as well go polish furniture somewhere. No, I'm no use. You have to be in here and think you don't know something. That's a prerequisite. And then ask me, and then I'll tell you I don't. So let me go to Chisho and see what Chisho has a question, and I'll come back to you, Jacob, if you still have a question.
Kishore, actually quite inappropriate timing as far as I'm concerned. I had only two comments. So
Yes.
one is I posted a link to Anekar's book in the chat. So people who have not seen it,
Oh,
they
very
can
good.
pick it up from there. It's a free PDF.
Very good. I'm glad to hear that.
Because you said you asked people to get the book. So here's a
please.
link that people can do. People
Yeah,
can.
free PDF. That's a great, and there's several other chapters in there that you might be interested in besides the 30 verses. Or is that pronounced Trimshatika?
Trimshatika.
Krimshatika. Okay, that's 30 verses. So
There's-
yes, go ahead.
The second thing in response to actually what Hogan was asking, you read today 26 and 27, but if you go to 28, 28 talks directly to grasping, and which is noble truth number 2 and number 3. And in fact, it beautifully connects it to Shikantaza, the way we practice Shikantaza, it connects it so perfectly. The second line, the second part of the second line. So
Is it 28?
28, yeah, 28.
When consciousness does not apprehend any object of consciousness, it's situated in consciousness only. For with the non-being of an object apprehended, there's no apprehension of it. Go ahead.
Shoto bowing.
Thank you, Chisho.
So if we're still seeing that there's something called an object, we're still seeing the beingness of that object.
Yeah, you don't, I sometimes say, I'm not trying to say, whoop-de-doo, you need to look around and not see anything. I'm saying, I don't see anything. I couldn't do this if I were seeing things. This doesn't mean that I don't suffer or have difficulty or stumble over things or bang my head into the wall. It doesn't mean that all that situation isn't going on because of the nature of consciousness. It's to show up as a this, or show up as the space in between this and this. Consciousness. Go ahead.
Shoto bowing. When you say you don't see anything, if we could take a picture of what you were
Yes.
seeing, would it look just like what we were seeing?
No, it would look like a pile of dead mice. Sorry. Well, I wanted to use an object that you would recognize and you would see that it's dead. I could have said something else probably, but that's what shows up. And what I'm saying is that the grasping of objects it needs to be cut through somehow. Just like Any grasping needs to be cut through, but not with aggression. It needs to be cut through with awareness of seeing that it's just fruitless to fight with our world and to accuse others. And when we have negative feelings, to blame someone for it, we might not be able to draw that blame back, but we can just be aware that we're downloading our anger, our difficulty on a person that's down the hall, or someone that because of the causes and conditions between you and that particular person, your relationship to them based on other dynamics. We can't really stop that, and you don't need to. You don't need to grow up or be a better, kinder, loving, more loving person. You can actually be the crap you're trying to get rid of, and in that way you can see that it's unreal, and it will not run your life. Nothing will run your life. There will be no authority anywhere. The only authority you'll have is when something falls over, you hear the sound. That's the authority. Dependent origination. Go ahead.
Shadow bowing, you encourage us to be the shit we're trying to get rid of.
Yes.
And we have a community of people trying to do that, which can show up as not being too kind to each other sometimes.
It's been very difficult. Yes.
What is kindness in the midst of our confusion?
Damned if I know. I mean, I can't point to something. The only thing I can say is you need to do it with your awareness, not with a conclusion or a scorecard. If you do that, you can find something wrong with everything, anybody or anything. It's so tempting to blame others for how we feel. And even if you've been meditating for 30 years, 50 years, that still will arise. It's just that you don't believe it, disbelieve it, and you certainly don't ignore it. And when you don't ignore it, that means it's might stay there and fester for a while. That does not indicate anything other than the nature of the illusion. It's unreal. But if you grasp it, shut it away, give it some kind of reality that it doesn't have, then you're deluded by it. And you create the illusion of a separate self that is hooked into what is being pointed to here by Vasubandhu. Twofold grasping will not cease to operate. Grasping itself, grasping at other as being real. A perceiver, and something perceived.
Shadow bowing, when you say something like we need to understand it with the consciousness, not with the
Yes.
thinking process.
Yes.
What is it to understand with the consciousness?
You won't know what you're doing, and you will no longer be concerned with the old-fashioned kind of knowing of. You already know it's time to get an oil change. That's why they call it idiot lights. I mean, you're already going to know that. That all works fine. But when you try to do it with your emotions, your psychology, and everything, you try to get in and manipulate things around. It's not that you couldn't get some kind of control or getting some of the emotions to be more subdued. There's several techniques in the therapy. Can you name a few that are geared towards that don't address people that want to have an awareness practice? They want to actually change things. How can you characterize anything being a therapist? Would you say cognitive behavioral stuff or some other one?
There's many, as you've pointed out many times, that there's many different
Yeah.
therapies, and so it just would be person-centric.
Person-centric. So, and we have, our community have therapists who we're also monks. I'm not against anybody, but
Shadow bowing, and you have monks that have also been therapized a lot.
monks have been therapized. Never heard that word. Did you just make that up?
If I did, it's because I used the wrong word.
Is there a final question out in Zoom land there?
Navid bowing.
Navid, go ahead. Glad you jumped in.
When we're having an internal conversation inside our mind, we're not actually situated in consciousness only.
Yes.
Bowing.
No, there is an area there where you're just aware of the give and take of the ping pong quality of that. So there's an area there where you can where you personally, or me, or anyone else may have to just watch that for a while. It's like watching giraffes with no necks. Confusing, because they should have necks. They're giraffes. So that kind of, and I'm being a little bit on the silly side, but I'm saying it's that kind of feeling. Something is missing. And that will draw you right into doing what? Spending the next 20 years trying to figure it out. Don't do that. Have a willingness to just not know what this is about. And that doesn't mean when you get up off the cushion that you don't go to the cupboard or make some soup or do the laundry or something very, very pragmatic.
Navi Bang,
Yes, sir.
what is the need to describe everything to ourselves in order to understand it?
I think that's just in order to have reference points so that it gives the ego mind, the self-centered part of the mind, some security. Well, at least I know this, and she's doing this, and you describe the way this is happening and the way that's happening. You describe our feelings, and everyone is their wiring is going to be different in this way. Some people are extremely busy describing everything. Storyteller. Sometimes you meet somebody, and the only way that you know that you're not much of a storyteller is you meet somebody who is. And they are just full of their ideas and their concepts and their descriptions of everything, including you. But it's not about shutting that off. It's about just training your mind. And the person right above you there on the screen, Dr. Mark Hirsch, is quite a storyteller. So are you using stories to avoid the fundamental nature of reality, Mark? Keep us surprised as to how that's going. So again, going back to Navid, the way you were asking about, it's not about wrong. It's about being aware of that. And then your dynamic, then you begin to really, for lack of a better word, begin to trust yourself. You know how to work with your mind. You know that you don't have to push with anything. You don't have to improve. You don't have to be somebody else. You can actually finally begin to give yourself a little bit of a break. The world isn't going to do it, but you could do it. There's no person there. I'm not talking about a person. I'm talking about consciousness.
Wonderbaum, can you ask
Thank you.
Yoka if he has a question on YouTube?
Myoka. So the question coming from Ondo is, do you have a question on YouTube?
Bowing. Hi, Sokuzan. No, none at this time. I am observing YouTube and there are none. Thank you. Bowing.
That's good. Well, then we'll go to Jishin.
Jishin bowing. I think you already answered that question, but I will ask it anyway. Is consciousness situated within perception only when we are aware? Bowing.
When we are
aware?
When we aren't?
When we are aware.
I suppose. The idea is there's just a perception. There's no perceiver, and there's nothing being perceived. There's just perception. And that's something that for ego does not satisfy ego. Ego does not like that kind of baloney. It wants a reference point. It wants to know I'm seeing something, I'm feeling something, this is true, I know this is right, or I'm the person who's being hindered or helped or supported or ignored by any given situation. Me, and that. Duality. It is important to see that. In other words, perception only, or consciousness only is another way of it said. And it's not a state of mind. It's not something you suddenly accomplish. For all that time, I was just full of myself, and now I'm just consciousness only. Whoop-de-doo. What do you think, Patrick?
I think it sounds like a long road.
Yeah, it is a long road. But it's not even a road. There are no footprints in that snow. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to go anywhere. It's right here, right under your, right here. It's in front of you. It's on your tablecloth. It's in the face of your wife, your son, your mother, your Doberman Pinscher. It's in the face of everything. Everything is saying to you, not separate. Don't believe anything I say. Consider it, but don't believe it. Let's close for now. Thank you so much.
May the merit of this penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Jiho san shi shi hu shi son bu sa moko sa moko the 10 directions, the 3 times, all Buddhas, all Venerable Ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna, Paramita. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect Sokukoji Buddhist Temple Monastery, our Sangha, families, friends, and visitors. Heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering, and fill them with light. We'll remain standing and face the altar, and we'll offer a supplication for the long life of Kyoten Sokuzan. Namo to Kobuchino Roshi in the Soto Zen lineage, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche in the Karmaka Kagyu lineage, the Order of Immediate Light, Queen Srimala and the Mothers of Wisdom, all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, ancestors and heirs, and the masters of the 3 times. You are the Vajra-like awareness, manifest for all beings, as a mountain, as the Garuda, outrageous and inscrutable. May that mountain, patient and immovable, be a platform for Buddha activity to flourish in all directions and times. Please remain so that we may awaken into true devotion and fulfill our vow to liberate all sentient beings. Om Ah Hum Vajra Guru Padma Siddhi Hum.